Hello everyone! My first time on YouTube Live, so I'm a couple technical difficulties, but hopefully this looks good for the quality. Alright. So these are the cards. I'm not going to be making a full card today. I do have my samples here. The main focus for today's live is to just go through the colors that I've used to create the realistic looking details of these hands. So this is from the All Together suite from Stampin' Up. This is brand new. It's a limited offering. Good morning. I see some comments coming in. I'm still standing. I won't be able to see comments the entire time, so I'm gonna have to try to figure that out logistically. But from that perspective, this is the DSP that we started with. So it's just blank slate. You can color it as simple or as detailed as you like. So this is what we're going over today. And then same thing for these hands. It started off as this sheet. So thank you for joining. And we'll go ahead and get started. Let's see if I can bring up my feed on the computer. All right. Okay, perfect. I do see it, and now I can see my comments. Got it. Hello, good morning. Wow, got someone from Germany. Thank you. All right, so definitely I'm hoping to be able to transfer this live from YouTube over to Instagram also, because that's where I'm most active, but the quality was much better here. So perfect. All right, I can see my screen now. So, all right, so to get started, I'm bringing up my guide, and I will be sure to share that also. Got too many screens up on my computer here. So thank you again. This is a little different than the Instagram Live, all the other different screens that I need to have up. So let's see. All right, so the guide here. For this one, I'm using the Natural Tones blends. And so that's these here. There's 10 of them. I've labeled mine. There's 10 different shades. They come in 2 packs. And so the numbers here are not coordinating with Copics or anything. These numbers that I'm going to be calling out are for our Stampin' blends. So the darkest color starts at 100. And then it goes all the way to 1000 for the lightest, kind of a pink shade. All right. So the key here for my guide, and I think maybe when I edit this, I'll have the guide up on the screen. This one here, I think for all of these hands, I use 2 colors primarily for the bulk of the arm and the hand. And then when it came to the palm and wanting that to be lighter and a little bit lighter along the inside, I used a far lighter color. So we'll start with this, the darkest hand. I used 200 and 100, again, the darkest, and then the shade lighter. And then I used an 800 to color the palms. All right, so that's what we're going to do first. All right, so let me move all these away because these alcohol blends, these are alcohol markers, will bleed through the DSP, the specialty paper. So this is the front side, here's the back side. You can see here, front side and back side. All right, so I definitely learned the hard way. My countertop got a little bit of coloring. It took a little bit of elbow grease to get out. So I'm also coloring on a scrap piece of cardboard here. All right, so let's see. I have a cut piece to just make better real estate, better use of my real estate. And I'm going to use, so out of the two pairing, again, my darker and my lighter color, I'm going to start with my lighter color. And I can't speak to Copics because I don't have exactly this same amount or same colors. But when it comes to the Copics, the first layer, when you come to the Stampin' Blends, the first layer that you lay down, it's going to look splotchy. And that's okay because as it dries, these do blend together. And now you'll notice here too, I'm not trying to color all the way to the lines. The reason being is we're going to put on 2 or 3 more layers, and this is actually going to cause it to bleed outside of the black lines a little bit. And again, I'll have some tips on how to cover that up or to fix it. So just getting my first layer down. Again, it looks splotchy. So now I'm going to go through with a second layer. And doing that second layer really covers up the splotches. It gets it to be a little bit more even with the tone all throughout. And again, I'm trying to just not draw right up to the line if possible. So that's it for the first layer. While I'm doing this, I do want to add, I am no expert in coloring. This is my, this is only like my 3rd or 4th time drawing these hands. So yeah, what you see here is pretty much all that I've been playing with regards to coloring. So I just want to share my relatively easy point, but I have taken some classes to learn a little bit about shading. And so you can see on here, there's little lines for the shading or that show a little bit of dimension for the hand, same here and here. So I'm just covering a little bit. So I'm thinking that the light is coming from the top. And you hear this all the time when it comes to coloring to make it look realistic, is you need to have a light source. So I'm not going to go over the details there. There's tons of tutorials out there, but I'm going to say that the light is coming from the top. So I got a little bit of shading here. I'm going to go along the side as well. And one other funny aspect is as I was coloring these for the first time, I totally Googled some images of hands just to see what it looked like. So yeah, that's what I use to get my shading. All right, so I'm adding shading underneath the palm right here, along the sides and along the thumb. For the shading up in the fingers, I'm only doing a tiny bit because again, it's going to cause some bleeding. So I'm using the very fine tip of the brush to go through. All right, so just tiny bit, not a lot. All right, the other thing that I'm going to do now is there's 2 ends to our alcohol markers. And this line. So one of them is a brush tip, one of them's a fine tip. It's actually not super fine, but it's great for drawing. So here's that line. It's pretty thick. And here's this line. So I could get pretty thin with this one, but I am going to use this tip. And what I'm doing here, so if you look at my hand, then the first lines I'm going to be drawing now are this line and then these 2. And this isn't perfect. I'm not going to worry about all these tiny little ones, but these 2 big lines. Most palms have these lines somewhere on their hand. So this is about halfway up on this side. And there's 2 of them connected that's spread apart, and then this one. That's all that I did. So, and this is not perfect. I'm just gonna there. That's it. And then this side, it's closer to your pinky and it's up higher than that one. All right, so I'm trying to see if I can get better lighting. All right, so you don't see it a ton, and that's okay. It's actually already starting to blend. The other thing that I'm going to be calling out is this crease right here, and then each of your fingers is kind of in thirds. So it's just 2 lines on each, about 1/3 of the way. So that's what I'm going to focus on. These are simple little lines, and that is it. I'm not doing curves, and then the thumb has 2, but I'm really just focusing on that top one. All right, so I did the second line anyways. All right, so those are the lines. That's it. I started with the first shade of the light, which was 100. Sorry, 200 was my lighter color. Then I went in with the details for the 100. Now is where the magic comes in, is using a way lighter color. So out of the spectrum of 100 to 1000, this is 800. All right, and I'm going to use the brush side. I'm going to try to keep my pen in hand out of the way as I color this. All right, so I'm going to start in the palm, and you can still see up close. Let me actually bring this up close so you can see. All right, so up close, do you see how you can still see the light faded details? They blended together, but you can still see the lines that I drew, and that's okay. So I'm not touching the pen to it, I'm actually just pointing with my brush. All right, so now using my 800, I'm gonna start pushing around the alcohol. So when I touch this alcohol, I just want you to see how it reacts. So here, I just colored on top and it really didn't do anything. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep pushing. I am pushing the darker inks to the side. That's how these behave. So these lines, the detailed lines that I had, I'm pushing the ink around those. I'm not crossing the detailed lines that I added. Okay, I'm pushing the ink to the side. And this is why with this technique, you'll get a little bit of bleeding. And I just want to show you how I handle it afterwards. So you see how light it's getting now? So that's what we're trying to do, is I'm just pushing the alcohol against those detailed lines that I added. So right, for the fingers, I added a couple. And then up here, I'm going in between those two lines that I had. And then on top of that, of this line. Okay, so I just colored here, pushed the ink into those lines, went through here, and now I'm pushing the ink up at the top. Okay, and now I'm gonna do a tiny bit of pushing on each of the fingers, on all 3 segments of each finger. All right, so that's it. And I pushed a little bit more alcohol because I was sitting here talking to you guys. So normally I don't push this much ink, but that's okay. I want to show you what I do for that scenario. Okay, so now the palm is lighter than it was. And so then I just added a little bit of pushing along the inside of your palm. So this whole area here sometimes is a little bit lighter. So again, just adding a tiny bit more. And that was pretty much all that I've done. And then as this dries, it's going to blend together. So again, it might look a little splotchy right now, but that is my technique. And so now this is just one hand. And right now, again, it looks all very splotchy, but it will dry. Okay, and so in this scenario, there's a lot of bleeding on this right-hand side. So I am going to use, this is the color lifter. I believe Copics has that also. So same thing, you saw how I was pushing the ink. That's what I'm doing now. I'm not erasing the line. I'm pushing the ink back towards the drawing. So that's what I'm going to do first. So you can see how it's already lightening up. I'm pushing from the outside towards the inside. All right, so it's lightening it up a little bit. And I think it's picking up some of the ink from behind. All right, and just a little bit on this side. And so I just played around with some colors. This was 100, 200, and 800, but really you guys get to choose which colors you want to play with. So for the base of your hand, pick 2 colors that are close together. All right, so that's gonna dry, and I'll come back later and show you what I do with the white chalk. All right, so that's our first hand. Okay, so that was the color lifter. All right, now I'm going to jump over here to another hand just to show you another shade. And let's see, which one did I use? I'm going to pick a hand that's not near it because I want it to dry so you can see what it looks like. All right, so let's do lighter, like 800, 700. All right, so again, we're looking at the spectrum of dark to light. This is 100 and 200. There we go, here's the whole spectrum. So 100's over here, all the way to 1,000 over here. Okay, so I'm gonna be picking now, I think 700 and 800 as my two. The lighter of the two is the 800. And then I can use 1,000 as my lightest color. All right, so that's gonna be my next hand. So that concept again, I have two colors for the base of my hand and one that is really lighter for the palm. So out of the two colors that I picked that are close together, 700 and 800, 800's the lighter one. So that's what I'm going to use now. All right, so now first layer. This is going to be splotchy, and again, I'm trying to not go all the way up to the very edge of my hands, okay? You want to minimize your ink bleeding, the bleeding. All right, so again, it looks splotchy for your first one. Your second layer makes it a lot more even toned. Okay, now I'm going with my darker shade. In this scenario, it's 700, and I'm going to add in the shadowing, the shading. On the sides of the forearm, a little bit underneath the palms, a little bit following the thumb, a little bit on the sides of the fingers. All right, that's all that I'm going to add from that perspective. That's on the brush, that's for shadows. Now I'm going to add the details of the hand again. So let me use my opposite hand. Okay, we have our V shape that touches about halfway up here, and then this line. It's so awesome to just look at some of the, again, Googled images to get that detail. All right, and there's that line. Now the fingers, again, tiny lines in between each. All right, and this one's almost dry, and add a little bit more color lifter. So now I'm on top. I pushed out most of my ink away. So now I'm going right on top of whatever's still bled outside of the lines. Just like an eraser. Okay, so again, that's gonna dry and that should look a little bit lighter. All right, so back over here, this was our 700 and 800 colors. So I've done my details now. It's pretty quick and easy, right? 2 layers of your base color, and then add the details with your darker color. And now I'm going to use 1,000 to push around and make my palm lighter. So I'm going to start in this biggest area here, trying to remember everywhere that I added the details. And remember, this alcohol, I'm just pushing the alcohol around, pushing the lighter alcohol colors into where my darker lines are. So I'm not trying to color over the lines that I just drew, right? The darker detailed lines. I'm pushing the ink around it with this lightest color. Now, same thing for the fingers. I'm pushing the ink from the top of the finger down to that first detailed line, in the middle up to the first detailed line, okay, and down here up to the detailed line. So by doing that, you're actually making these points a little bit darker. All right, same thing here. I'm just pushing it so that it really emphasizes those lines on your fingers. All right, so that's the technique for the palms. Pretty simple. I wasn't talking as much on this one, so it didn't bleed as much. So this probably is not the best example here, but I'm gonna show you anyways. All right, so since I was talking on this one, I'll show you. Again, it bled, and that's expected because of how much ink I laid down on the paper. All right, so what I'm gonna do is now I'm just adding a little bit of the chalk, white chalk marker. And right, handmade cards, they're not perfect. And so this is just like an artistic touch to it. That's going on the outside of the hands. So this is just our chalk marker. So now you can see from a distance, that's how I got my palms. And that is how I colored them. So now this one's bleeding a little bit. I'm pushing the ink towards the black lines. Same thing between the fingers. A little bit on this side. And again, you have two sides, the brush tip and the fine tip. So you can try with both of those to push that ink back towards the hand. So that's the color lifter. And yeah, so I'm gonna check. I haven't been checking. Do I have any questions? Okay, great. I'm glad you guys are finding this useful. Awesome. All right, so then I'm gonna keep this pretty short, and it's already almost 10 o'clock. So let's show you really quickly how I do one of these hands. All right, so here's the one that I did. And I think the only really fancy part is this light line in between here. So let's see, what colors did I use? Since I already have these ones out for the sake of time, let's do 700, 800, and 1000, maybe. All right, so 800 is my lighter of the two colors. Okay, so 800. Let's do this guy. All right, so just lay down your first shade. Again, you don't need to get all the way on top of your black line. You can color right up to the edge. Okay, first layer is down. I'm going to go through with a second layer to help avoid it looking splotchy. Okay, and what I'm doing here is I'm pushing right here, and I'm stopping at about this line. And again, I was looking at a Googled image. That's why I just decided to have a little highlight of light right there. All right, and then same thing for the fingers down to this little line. This is just an invisible line here. This is the line I'm talking about. I think you can see it pretty well. This line here, just a little light reflection. All right, now I'm gonna go in with my darker of the two shades, so 700, 800. As you go lower, it's darker, so 700. Here, I'm gonna go along the bottom here, where the hand is covering this one. There's some shading all along here and along this other hand. Same thing on the bottom here. There's the light is coming from this direction, so it's gonna be darker over here and here. All right, and then for shading between the fingers, I'm picking, again, if my light's this way, the darker side's on the left. All right. So from that perspective, oh, my darker colors. Okay, so out of the two, again, the darker is the 700. So now I'm also going to add the knuckles. This one was a little difficult for me, but then I just decided on this second one to just not think about it too much. So all I'm doing here is like a random little triangle-ish shape. It is not perfect by any means, just darkness here. So just a little scribble. And then the fingers, right? So your pinky bends. There's a bend right here, and looks like there's a bend-ish right here. I see a second bend up here for these knuckles. All right, so I'm not gonna push because this is not your palm. So I'm not pushing the same here. So all that I'm gonna do now, that was my darker color, adding the details, the lighter of my two colors. I'm gonna now go back and go over the shadowing lines to help make it blend a little bit more. Okay, and again, I'm adding more ink, so it's gonna be a shade darker, and I'm gonna remember that line that I had there. Okay, same thing, kind of just blending in with my brush tip to make the shadows and the details that I just added a little less harsh. And then I'm pushing the ink. Sorry, not pushing, I'm just adding ink, but avoiding a tiny little spot to get the lightness, the light reflective aspect. All right, so when that dries, it's gonna look very similar to this one. I think I used the same colors, I forget now. All right, I got a little bit of bleeding over here. Take my color lifter and push. Push that ink back into the hand. Back into the areas of color. And then for the nail, you can just pick any light color, lighter than your hand. That is the technique I wanted to share. So I really appreciate you guys joining me today. Here's a close-up. So this one was my very first hand. I went ambitious. And this one, it did definitely started bleeding quite a bit. So this one was a little bit harder for me to fix. Then this was my final hand out of these four. So you can see I got a lot of the good light detail where I didn't go over it, again, with another marker. And then what I wanted to show you guys as well is that we had quite a few people join the creative competition for Stampin' Up. This was an internal competition. And it was a lot of fun. It was really based around our new natural tones blends. There's also the awesome stamp set that you guys, that came with this. I'm trying to find it right now. All right, so we got this brand new stamp set. So in addition to the DSP paper that comes with it, which there's also a lot of really great black and white patterns. The competition was about using these and using the natural blends. The natural blends, the stamp set is a limited time offer, but I'm so happy to hear that our natural tones blends are gonna be around for a while. So the competition was to show different ways of using them. And that's what I wanna share with you guys. So used it to color behind a rainbow. I used it here to color thread and put this behind. Definitely this one was inspired by Creative Ibby. She does a lot of threading on her cards. Colored a flower in this scenario, and this is 4 different shades of the natural tones. Of course, you guys have now seen these 2. So this one has every single sentiment from the stamp set, stamped strategically behind the beautiful hands. And then I have You Matter. This one's a street art graffiti style. I really did the inlaid die cutting. There's a die cut set that comes with it too, and I add a lot of the sentiments onto poster boards. Wanted to make sure that, to show the real versatility to this. And then we get into more creative ways to use this. I used a stencil. I traced the stencil with pencil, and then I colored it in with all of the blends. And then alcohol inks, pointillism. So here's another one where I used all 10 shades, lightest to darkest, and I added some gold embossed dots using a water painter and my Versamark ink refill. And then alcohol ink is another, using alcohol markers for alcohol ink art. It's something that I've been playing with for the last like 8 months or so. So I created this one, a flowy background with the 5 darkest tones. Then I stamped, heat embossed, and then I erased. I took away the ink from inside the flowers. I have a set of roses here where I got almost all 10 shades. This one I did 5 roses, and then I hand cut this top paper and added heat embossing along. So it looks like the bee is just pollinating all these beautiful flowers. May good things grow all year long. And the final of my 12 cards, I think that was all 12. I had an extra panel of alcohol inks, and I was able to die cut all these hearts from that panel, and this is 9 of the 10 shades. So these alcohol blends, these 10 shades were much needed. I know Copics have had a really great selection of natural tone blends, natural tone colors, but I'm really glad that we have this product now. And for anyone interested in purchasing this set, I believe it's $45 for all 10 of them. I'm willing to share my discount. So I really want to make sure that whoever wants these blends are getting them in their hands. Same thing with the stamp set. If you guys order with me anytime before February 28th, I'd be more than happy to share my discount. So just contact me with details on Instagram. Here on YouTube, we can exchange emails, but I'm really happy that we have these blends now. Very important to be able to color different skin tones. And with the current, or with the previous colors that Stampin' Up offered, there weren't enough for skin tones. So while it's called Natural Tones Blends, it's definitely skin tones to me. And these are all the other different ways to use them. So thank you guys. Appreciate you guys joining us. And now let's see if I can save this for future watching. Have a great rest of your day.